Welcome to this quiet space, a place designed for both learning and rest. As the world outside slows down and the shadows lengthen, I invite you to settle in, adjust your pillows, and let your breathing to find a natural, easy rhythm. Tonight, we are going to explore one of the most beautiful mysteries of the natural world, the invisible maps that guide life across our planet. We often think of ourselves as the primary navigators of the Earth, but beneath the surface of our awareness, millions of creatures are possessing a secret knowledge, an internal compass that directs them through trackless oceans and over vast, silent mountain ranges. At this very moment, while you are preparing for sleep, there are wings beating in the darkness high above. There are fins gliding through the deep currents of the sea and hooves treading softly across frozen tundras. These travelers move with a quiet, unwavering purpose. They don't use satellites or paper maps. They listen to the Earth itself. They feel the tug of the magnetic poles and the subtle shift in the stars. It is a vast, silent migration that happens every hour of every day, weaving the world together in a way we rarely see. If you find that these gentle explorations of our world help you find a sense of calm or assist you in drifting into a more peaceful rest, perhaps you'd like to subscribe and like the video. It's a soft way to join our community of learners and sleepers, and it helps ensure these quiet stories continue to reach those who need them. I'm truly glad you're here with me tonight. It is helpful to realize that migration is far more than just a long journey or a simple commute. It is something much deeper. Scientists often describe it as the rhythmic pulse of the planet. Just as your heart beats to move life through your body, the movement of animals across the globe is a vital circulation. It is a massive, coordinated breath that the Earth takes every year. This pulse has been beating for millions of years, a steady ancient cycle that connects the frozen north to the lush tropics and the sun-drenched plains to the depths of the Antarctic. It is a reminder that the world is always in motion, even when it feels still. You might have felt this pulse yourself, perhaps without even realizing it. Think of those moments when the air begins to change, that specific, crisp scent that arrives just before the first frost, or the sudden golden quality of the light as winter begins to fade into spring. For us, it might just mean reaching for a heavier coat or opening a window. But for the rest of the living world, these subtle shifts in the atmosphere are a profound signal. They are the physical sensation of the seasons turning, a biological trigger that whispers to the traveler that it is time to move. That feeling of autumn or spring in the air, it is more than just a change in temperature or a shift in the scent of the breeze. For the migratory traveler, it is a biological trigger, a silent bell ringing in the cells of a million different creatures. While we might notice the leaves turning or the first buds appearing on a branch, animals are tuned into a much more precise clock, the sun. This phenomenon is known to scientists as photoperiodism. It is the ability of a living organism to sense and react to the changing length of the day. As the Earth tilts on its axis, the ratio of light to darkness shifts by just a few minutes every day, And it is this incredibly subtle change that acts as the starting pistol for the greatest journeys on Earth. Imagine for a moment the precision required to detect such a small difference. For many animals, this internal calendar is managed by a small, remarkable part of the brain called the pineal gland. In some species, this gland is so sensitive to light that it is often referred to as a third eye. Even through feathers, fur, or bone, the pineal gland can sense the waning light of late summer or the waxing light of early spring. It translates the golden glow of the sun into a chemical language, releasing hormones like melatonin that signal to the rest of the body that the world is changing. When the days reach a specific critical length, a transformation begins. It is a quiet, internal preparation. Before a single bird takes flight, before a single whale begins its long swim north, the journey has already started within the brain. The animal's metabolism begins to shift, its appetite may increase, and its very temperament might change as it becomes more restless, more focused on a destination it cannot yet see. It is a profound realization that the impulse to travel across continents is not a choice made in the moment, but a deep-seated response to the mechanics of our solar system. The tilt of the planet and the duration of the sunlight are the conductors of this grand global orchestra. This internal clock ensures that the traveler leaves at exactly the right time, not too early, when the destination might still be locked in ice, and not too late, when the resources they need might already be gone. It is a masterclass in timing refined over millions of years of evolution. But as we think about this perfect when, it leads us naturally to a deeper question. We know how they time their departure, but what is it that truly drives them to leave the relative safety of their current home? If the light provides the signal, what is the ultimate purpose of the journey? We often assume it is simply a matter of escaping the cold, but the truth is far more complex and far more interesting. It is a story of energy, survival, and a delicate balance that keeps the entire natural world in motion. It is a common misconception that animals flee the coming winter simply because they are cold. We might imagine a small songbird shivering on a frost-covered branch, looking longingly toward the south. But in reality, many of these creatures are surprisingly resilient to the drop in temperature. Their feathers are marvels of engineering, providing incredible insulation, and their metabolic rates can shift to keep their tiny bodies warm, even when the world is covered in snow. The true catalyst for migration is something much more fundamental to life. It is a complex, elegant energy equation. Think of migration as a grand biological balancing act. Every living creature operates on a budget of calories. To stay in one place during the winter requires a certain amount of energy just to maintain body heat. However, if the food source, the fuel for that heat, disappears, the budget fails. For many migratory birds, like the vibrant yellow warbler or the graceful swallow, their primary source of protein is insects. As the air cools and the flowers fade, those insects vanish, either dying off or retreating deep into the earth. The bird isn't necessarily running away from the chill of the air. It is following the path of its next meal. It is making a choice guided by instinct to spend a massive amount of energy on a long, arduous journey, because the payoff at the other end is a land of abundance. Scientists study this as the cost benefit. of travel. At first glance, it might seem strange that a creature weighing only a few ounces would fly thousands of miles across oceans and mountains just to find a specific type of beetle or a certain hatch of flies. Yet, in the logic of the wild, it is the most sensible path. In the lush tropical forests of the south or the blooming meadows of the far hemisphere, food is so plentiful that the energy spent traveling is quickly recovered. This movement ensures the survival of the next generation. It allows these travelers to inhabit the best of both worlds, following a never-ending cycle of spring and summer across the globe. There is such a deep sense of purpose in these movements. In the animal kingdom, nothing is done by accident or without reason. Every beat of a wing and every mile navigated is a calculated, rhythmic step towards survival. When we look up at a flock of birds passing overhead, we aren't just seeing a group of animals moving. We are witnessing the planet's own heartbeat, a pulse of life that refuses to be extinguished by the changing seasons. It is a quiet, steady determination that connects the frozen north to the sun-drenched south. As this internal need for movement grows, it begins to manifest in a very specific physical way. Even before the bird takes to the air or the whale leaves the bay, an invisible itch begins to take hold within them. It is a feeling of being pulled by an unseen thread. Researchers have given this state of being a beautiful, evocative name, Zuggenruhe. It is a German word that translates to migratory restlessness. It is the feeling of a traveler who is already gone in spirit, a quiet, growing urgency that whispers that the time for rest has passed, and the time for the horizon has finally arrived. Imagine for a moment that you are a small bird resting on a branch in the late summer twilight. You have plenty of food, the weather is still mild, and your nest is secure. But deep within your body, a change is occurring. It is an invisible itch, a quiet, insistent tugging at your spirit that you cannot ignore. This is the Zuggenruhe we spoke of, the migratory restlessness that signals the end of one chapter and the beginning of a great journey. It is a feeling that transforms a sedentary creature into a traveler, even before the first mile is flown. It is a restlessness that exists in the blood and the bone, a biological countdown that eventually becomes impossible to resist. This phenomenon is so powerful that it can be observed even in birds that have never known the wild. In scientific studies, researchers have placed migratory birds in specialized cages during the season when they would naturally begin their flight. These cages, often called Emlyn funnels, are lined with ink pads and paper. Even without the sight of the horizon, the smell of the distant sea, or the feeling of the wind, these birds do not simply flutter aimlessly. They gather at the specific side of the cage that faces their migratory destination. If they are meant to fly south, they spend their nights hopping and fluttering against the southern wall, leaving tiny ink footprints that point like an arrow toward their ancestral home. Their hearts beat with the rhythm of a journey they have not yet begun. It is a hauntingly beautiful display of nature's blueprint. The bird's body knows where it needs to be, even if its eyes have never seen the way. This restlessness isn't just a mood, it is rooted deeply in the bird's biology. It is driven by the avian endocrine system, a complex network of glands and hormones that respond to the changing light of the seasons. As the days grow shorter, the bird's brain begins to produce different levels of hormones like corticosterone and prolactin. These chemicals act like a biological on switch, altering the bird's metabolism and its behavior. They trigger a state of hyper-awareness and a shift in the internal clock. Even melatonin, the hormone that governs sleep, plays a role, shifting the bird's activity from the day into the night, preparing it for the long hours of nocturnal flight that lie ahead. It is as if the bird is being physically rebuilt from the inside out to become a creature of the wind. The realization here is profound. The instinct to move is so strong that it manifests entirely from within. It does not require a teacher, and it does not require an external map to be present in that very moment. The map is already written into the bird's very cells. It is a biological certainty, a promise made by evolution that the traveler will know when it is time to go. It is a quiet, steady pulse that says, not here, further, beyond. Even in the silence of a cage, the call of the distance is deafening. But once that internal itch becomes too strong to resist, and the bird finally takes to the sky, it needs more than just the urge to move. It needs a way to stay on course across thousands of miles of unfamiliar territory. It needs a guide that is constant, reliable, and visible from high above. As the sun rises on the first day of the journey, the traveler looks to the sky and finds its first great anchor. The sun, our golden star, becomes the primary compass for the daytime traveler, providing a steady point of reference in a world that is suddenly moving very, very fast. As the first rays of dawn stretch across the horizon, painting the world in shades of soft gold and pale blue, the traveler finally lifts off. The sun is more than just a source of warmth. For the weary wings, it is the ultimate daytime anchor. For millions of years, migratory species have looked to this steady glowing orb as their primary guide through the vast open sky. To a bird in flight, the sun provides what scientists call an azimuth, a specific horizontal direction relative to the horizon. By keeping the sun at a particular angle to its body, the traveler can maintain a remarkably straight course over hundreds of miles of featureless landscape or the rolling waves of the open sea. It is a simple, elegant way to find one's way through the world. However, as we know from watching the shadows grow long on a summer afternoon, the sun is a moving target. It does not sit still. It rises in the east, climbs to its peak at noon, and slowly sinks into the west. If a bird were to simply fly toward the sun all day long, it would end up flying in a giant, useless arc, eventually losing its way entirely. To solve this celestial puzzle, nature has gifted these creatures with something truly extraordinary, a time-compensated sun compass. This is not just a sense of direction, but a profound integration of space and time. The bird possesses an internal biological clock, a circadian rhythm, that is perfectly synchronized with the rotation of the earth. This clock allows the bird to know exactly what time of day it is, even without looking at a watch. Because it knows the time, It knows where the sun should be in the sky at any given moment. As the hours tick by, the bird's brain automatically calculates the sun's movement and adjusts its heading accordingly. It knows that if it is 10 o'clock in the morning, the sun must be kept at one angle, but by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that angle must change significantly to stay on a true southern path. This is a feat of mental calculation that happens without a single conscious thought. It is a quiet, rhythmic adjustment, as natural as the beating of their own hearts. The bird's internal clock and the sun's position are like two gears in a magnificent, invisible machine, working in perfect harmony to ensure the traveler never wavers. This synchronization allows them to navigate with a precision that rivals our most advanced human technology, all contained within a brain no larger than a seed. Even as the wind pushes against their feathers and the earth below changes from forest to field to coast, the sun remains a constant, reliable lighthouse in the sky. But as the day progresses and the light begins to change, the golden warmth of the afternoon starts to fade. The long shadows of evening stretch across the land, and the sun eventually dips below the edge of the world, leaving a trail of purple and deep indigo in its wake. For some travelers, this is a signal to find a safe branch and tuck their heads beneath a wing for the night. But for many others, the setting of the sun is simply the changing of a guard. As the world grows still and the air turns crisp and cool, a new map begins to reveal itself in the darkening dome above. The departure of the sun is not the end of the journey, but a transition into a different, quieter realm, the velvet sky of the night migrant. As the last traces of orange and pink dissolve into a deep, comforting indigo, a different kind of journey begins. While many of us are preparing to drift into sleep, millions of tiny travelers are just beginning their day's work. This is the world of the night migrant. For many songbirds, the delicate warblers, the melodic thrushes, and the vibrant orioles, the darkness of the night is not a barrier, but a sanctuary. There is a practical wisdom in choosing the night for travel. The air is often stiller and smoother than the turbulent, sun-warmed air of the day, allowing for a more efficient, rhythmic flight. The cool night temperatures also help these small creatures dissipate the immense heat generated by their beating wings. But perhaps the greatest gift of the night is safety. In the shadows of the stars, they are hidden from the sharp eyes of hawks and other predators that rule the daylight hours. In the quiet of the midnight sky, they can fly for hours in relative peace, suspended in a velvet void. But how does a small bird weighing no more than a few coins find its way across a darkened continent? Without the sun to guide them, they turn their gaze upward to the shimmering tapestry of the stars. This is known as the stellar compass. It is a remarkable feat of learning that begins long before the bird ever leaves its home. While still a fledgling, sitting in the safety of its nest, a young bird spends its nights watching the sky. It doesn't simply memorize the positions of the stars. It observes their movement. As the earth rotates, the stars appear to move in great slow circles around a single fixed point in the sky. In the northern hemisphere, this point is the North Star, or Polaris. The young bird watches this celestial dance and learns that the one point that does not move represents north. It builds a mental map of the constellations that rotate around this stillness. By the time it is ready to migrate, the bird has learned the geometry of the heavens. It uses the stars not as individual lights, but as a rotating clock that always points the way. This means that for a migratory bird, the night sky is a familiar map, a guide they have studied since they were small enough to fit in the palm of a hand. Even as they fly through the vast, lonely stretches of the night, they are never truly lost as long as the stars are visible. They are navigating by the very rotation of the universe itself, a silent, ancient rhythm that guides them toward their destination. It is a beautiful thought that a tiny creature can find its way by the light of suns burning trillions of miles away. Yet, the world is not always clear. There are nights when the stars are swallowed by thick, heavy clouds, and the velvet sky becomes an impenetrable gray. In these moments, when the visual world disappears entirely, the traveler does not falter. Deep within their very being, they carry a sense that requires no light at all. They begin to tap into a force that surrounds the entire planet, an invisible web of energy that we can only detect with the help of complex instruments. This is the most mysterious sense of all, the ability to feel the very pulse of the Earth's core. Imagine, for a moment, being able to see the invisible lines of the Earth's magnetic field, stretching from pole to pole, guiding you through the deepest fog and the darkest night. This sense, known as magnetoreception, is the secret language of the planet. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that the air around you isn't empty. Imagine that the very space you occupy is filled with soft, glowing ribbons of energy stretching out from the ground and arching high into the sky, curving over the horizon toward the distant poles of our world. To us, the Earth's magnetic field is a phantom, a silent force we only know through the trembling needle of a compass or the dancing lights of the aurora borealis. But for a migratory traveler, this invisible web is as real as the wind against their feathers or the sun upon their back. It is a sense that never sleeps. So it's a guide that functions in the deepest, most lightless depths of the ocean and through the thickest, grayest mountain mists. While we rely on our eyes to tell us where we are, many of the Earth's creatures rely on the very pulse of the planet itself. To understand this, we must look deep beneath our feet, thousands of miles below the soil and the cooling crust, into the heart of the Earth. There, a great engine of molten iron and nickel churns in a slow, rhythmic dance. This movement creates a massive magnetic field that envelops the globe, turning our planet into a giant magnet spinning through the void of space. These lands of magnetic force flow out from the southern hemisphere and wrap around the Earth, diving back down at the north. They are not uniform. They curve and tilt, growing steeper as they approach the poles and leveling out as they cross the equator. It is a beautiful, invisible architecture that defines the geography of the entire world, and for millions of years, life has been learning how to read it. For a migratory bird or a sea turtle, this field is not just a direction. It is a source of profound comfort and certainty. Imagine being in a vast, featureless sea, with no landmarks and no stars to guide you. In that silence, a human might feel a sense of profound isolation, but a sea turtle, swimming through the dark currents of the Atlantic, feels the Earth's magnetic pull as a steady, reassuring hum. they can sense the inclination of the field, the specific angle at which the magnetic lines strike the Earth. This angle acts like a signature, telling the traveler exactly how far north or south they have wandered. They possess a sensory world that we can only begin to understand with the help of satellites and complex digital instruments. To them, the planet is not a mystery to be solved, but a familiar path to be followed. This magnetic sense, known as magnetoreception, allows animals to perceive a layer of reality that remains entirely hidden from our own five senses. It is a quiet, constant dialogue between the creature and the planet. When the clouds gather and the stars are hidden, when the landmarks of the coast are swallowed by the night, the traveler simply listens to the Earth. They feel the tilt of the magnetic lines, the subtle changes in intensity, and they know with a deep, instinctive certainty that they are on the right path. It is a form of navigation that is both ancient and incredibly sophisticated, a biological miracle that turns the entire globe into a map. But how does a living being actually feel a magnetic field? How does the invisible become tangible? To find the answer, we must look closer, past the feathers and the skin, and into the very cells of the traveler, where a secret is hidden within the structure of the eye itself. In the quiet darkness of the bird's eye, there is a special kind of protein called a cryptochrome. These proteins are sensitive to blue light, the gentle glow that lingers in the sky even after the sun has dipped below the horizon. When a single photon of light enters the eye and strikes one of these proteins, it triggers a reaction that is as mysterious as it is beautiful. It is a process that happens at the quantum level, a scale so small and delicate that it seems to belong more to the world of dreams than to the world of physical matter. Inside the cryptochrome, the light creates what scientists call radical pairs, tiny molecules with electrons that are momentarily separated but remain deeply connected to one another. In this brief, shimmering moment of separation, these electrons become incredibly sensitive to the Earth's magnetic field. Depending on how the bird's head is tilted and how it is aligned with the magnetic lines of the planet, the chemical reaction within the eye changes. It is a tiny internal laboratory working in total silence, translating the invisible forces of the Earth into a language the brain can understand. For many years, researchers wondered how a bird actually experiences this information. They now believe that for the bird, navigation is not a conscious calculation or a physical tugging at their feathers. Instead, it is likely a visual layer of their reality. Imagine looking out at a landscape and seeing not just the trees and the hills, but a soft, translucent veil draped over the world. As the bird turns its head, this veil might appear as a subtle patch of light or a gentle shadow, a shifting gradient that indicates the direction of the magnetic poles. This means that a migratory bird doesn't just see the world, they see the Earth's magnetic field as a part of the scenery. To them, the North is not just a concept, but perhaps a specific shade of blue or a soft glow on the horizon of their vision. It is a heads-up display provided by nature, a biological compass that is literally woven into the fabric of their sight. As they fly through the night, the stars provide one map, and the magnetic light provides another, overlapping to create a path of absolute certainty. It is a profound thought that while we see only the surface of the world, the traveler sees the very forces that hold the world together. Their reality is painted with the magnetic breath of the planet. But as incredible as this visual compass is, it is only one half of the story. Knowing which way is north is vital, but it is not enough to find a specific nesting site thousands of miles away. To do that, you need more than a compass. You need a map. You need to know not just where you are facing, but exactly where you are standing on the vast curved surface of the earth. While the eyes provide the direction, another part of the bird's body is hard at work, determining their precise location. To find this second, even more specialized tool, we must move our focus away from the shimmering proteins of the eye and look toward the sturdy, sensitive structure of the beak. There, tucked away in the bone and tissue, lies a different kind of miracle, a tiny internal GPS that reads the world not through light, but through the weight of ancient minerals. Consider for a moment the difference between a compass and a map. A compass is a wonderful tool. It tells you which way is north, allowing you to maintain a steady, straight course. But a compass, on its own, cannot tell you where you are. If you were dropped into the middle of a vast, featureless ocean, knowing which way is north would help you sail in a straight line, but it wouldn't tell you how far you are from the nearest coast, or whether you are in the Atlantic or the Pacific. To know that, you need a map, a way to understand your specific coordinates on the surface of the globe. For a migratory bird, the journey is not just about flying in the right direction. It is about finding a very specific destination. It might be a single, secluded pond in a vast tundra, or perhaps the exact same nesting bush in a suburban backyard they haven't seen in 6 months. To achieve this level of precision, nature has provided them with a second, deeply hidden sense. While the eyes provide the direction, the beak provides the location. Deep within the tissue and bone of the upper beak, scientists have discovered clusters of microscopic crystals called magnetite. These are naturally occurring magnets, smaller than a speck of dust, yet incredibly sensitive. These crystals are linked directly to the bird's nervous system, specifically the trigeminal nerve, which carries sensory information to the brain. As the bird moves across the planet, these tiny magnets react to the Earth's magnetic field in a way that is entirely different from the light-sensitive proteins in the eye. The Earth's magnetism is not uniform. It is stronger near the poles and weaker near the equator, and the angle at which the magnetic lines enter the ground changes depending on your latitude. To a bird, these variations are not invisible. The magnetite crystals in their beak act like a highly sensitive biological sensor, detecting the subtle shifts in magnetic intensity and the dip of the field lines. This allows the bird to feel its position on the Earth, almost like a thumbprint of the planet's energy. It is, in every sense, an internal GPS. By combining the visual data from their eyes, the compass, with the physical sensation in their beak, the map, the bird possesses a complete navigation system. They know exactly which way they are facing and exactly where they are located on the vast, curved surface of the planet. This dual system is so precise that a bird can be blown hundreds of miles off course by a sudden storm and still find its way back to its original path, recalculating its new position against the magnetic grid of the world. This harmony of senses allows for a level of resilience and precision that seems almost magical. It is a reminder that the world is full of invisible landmarks, and that these travelers are tuned into frequencies of existence that we are only just beginning to map ourselves. But as we marvel at the complexity of the avian mind, we must also look toward the smaller, more fragile wonders of the natural world. Not all great navigators possess the sturdy wings of a hawk or the complex brain of a crane. Some of the most incredible journeys on Earth are undertaken by creatures so light they can be carried away by a gentle breeze. Creatures whose entire life's work is written in the rhythmic, fragile beat of orange and black wings. Imagine, for a moment, the weight of a single paperclip resting in the palm of your hand. It is almost nothing, a mere half a gram of metal, light enough to be forgotten. Now, imagine that same weight transformed into a living creature with wings as thin as tissue paper and a body no thicker than a blade of grass. This is the monarch butterfly. It is a creature of such profound delicacy that a heavy raindrop can feel like a falling stone, yet it is capable of a feat that rivals the most powerful migratory birds on the planet. In the late summer and early autumn, the air in many parts of North America begins to change. The light turns a deeper gold and the shadows grow long. It is then that the monarchs begin their assembly. If you were to stand in a quiet meadow during this time, you might see them, first one, then 10, then hundreds, until the sky is filled with a swirling river of orange and black. To see them en masse is to witness one of nature's most quiet, breathtaking spectacles. Their wings, patterned like intricate stained glass, catch the fading sun as they drift southward. The sound of their collective movement is nothing more than a soft, rhythmic whisper, like the rustling of dry leaves in a gentle breeze. While many insects move from place to find food or avoid a frost, the monarch is unique in the world of butterflies. It is the only one known to perform a true two-way migration, much like the birds we have explored. They do not simply wander where the wind takes them. They travel with a distinct purpose and a fixed destination. For those living east of the Rocky Mountains, that destination is a specific, tiny cluster of mountains in central Mexico. For those in the west, it is the coastal groves of California. To reach these sanctuaries, these tiny travelers must fly up to 3,000 miles. They cross vast prairies, navigate over bustling cities, and endure the unpredictable winds of the open plains. It is a journey that seems impossible for a creature so fragile. Their wings are easily torn and their tiny bodies are vulnerable to the elements, yet they persist with a rugged, quiet endurance. This fragility is a beautiful illusion. Beneath those delicate scales lies a biological drive that is as old and as steady as the mountains they seek. They are not merely drifting, they are navigating a continental map with a precision that defies their small stature. As you listen to the thought of those millions of wings beating in unison, take a slow, comfortable breath. Imagine the steady, rhythmic pulse of their flight as they rise and fall on the warm air currents. They are moving toward a home they have never seen, driven by an instinct that is woven into their very DNA. However, there is a mystery to this journey that sets the monarch apart from almost any other traveler on Earth. Unlike a bird that may make the same trip many times over its life, the monarch butterfly faces a different reality. The butterfly that departs from a garden in the north will never see the end of its journey. Instead, this epic trek is a relay race, a story told across multiple lifetimes. It is a journey that requires 4 separate generations to complete, a cycle of life and death that ensures the survival of the species through a future the individual will never know. Imagine a journey so vast that it cannot be completed in a single lifetime. It is a quest that spans across seasons and requires the combined efforts of 4 distinct generations, each passing the torch to the next in a silent biological relay race. This is the extraordinary reality of the monarch butterfly. When we think of migration, we are often imagine a bird flying south for the winter and returning in the spring, a single traveler completing a round trip. But for the monarch, the story is far more complex and perhaps even more beautiful. The butterfly that begins the northward trek from the warm mountains of Mexico in the early spring is not the same one that will return there in the autumn. It is a story of legacy, where the finish line is a place the ancestors dreamed of, but only the descendants will ever reach. In the early spring, as the air begins to warm and the milkweed starts to sprout, the first generation of butterflies leaves their winter sanctuaries in the south. They fly toward the north, perhaps reaching the southern United States. There, they find the specific plants they need, lay their eggs, and their brief, purposeful life comes to a gentle close. From those eggs, the second generation emerges. They continue the journey, pushing further into the heart of the continent, fueled by nectar and the warming sun. Then comes the third generation, born in the heat of midsummer. For these first 3 generations, life is vibrant but fleeting. They live for only 2 to 6 weeks, just enough time to mature, reproduce, and move the species a few hundred miles further north. Each one is a vital link in a chain that stretches across thousands of miles of prairie, meadow, and forest. There is something deeply moving about this design. Each individual butterfly lives its life with quiet intensity, contributing its few weeks of flight to a larger movement it cannot fully comprehend. Nature, in its patient wisdom, plans for a future that the individual will never see. It is a collective effort, a rhythmic pulse of life that moves across the map like a slow-moving wave of orange and black. The butterfly you might see dancing in a garden in Ohio or Ontario during the peak of summer is the great-grandchild of the one that left the Mexican forests months before. They have no map, no guide, and no memory of the lands to the south. Yet they are part of a grand design that ensures the survival of their kind. They are born into a journey that was started by those they never knew. But as the days begin to shorten and the first hint of autumn chill touches the air, something miraculous happens within the biology of the monarch. The 4th generation is born, and it is fundamentally different from the 3 that came before it. Unlike its parents and grandparents, this generation is not destined for a short life of a few weeks. It is born with a different purpose, a different physical makeup, and a different destiny. This is the generation that must fly all the way back, not just a few hundred miles, but the entire distance across the continent, over mountains and plains, to a home it has never seen. It is a biological masterpiece, a traveler unlike any other in the insect world. We often call it the super generation or the Methuselah generation for its incredible longevity and its role as the ultimate guardian of the species' future. Imagine the quiet stillness of a late summer afternoon. The sun hangs a little lower in the sky, casting long golden shadows across the fields. It is in this cooling light that the Methuselah generation emerges from its chrysalis, while its ancestors were spirits of the summer, living lives that were vibrant but brief. This generation is a creature of the long horizon. It is born with the gift of time, a lifespan that stretches 8 times longer than those who came before it. If a typical monarch is a spark, this generation is a steady, enduring flame designed to survive the turning of the seasons and the vastness of the geography ahead. This longevity is not a matter of chance, but a deliberate biological masterpiece. As the butterfly matures, its body enters a state called reproductive diapause. This is a profound internal pause, a slowing down of the biological clock. Instead of the frantic energy of finding a mate and laying eggs, the butterfly's systems remain quiet and focused. All the nectar it sips from the late-season wildflowers is converted into dense, energy-rich lipids. These fats are stored in the butterfly's abdomen, acting as a specialized fuel tank for the thousands of miles ahead. It is becoming a marathon traveler, a tiny pilot equipped with everything it needs to cross a continent. There's a graceful efficiency in this design. By delaying its maturity, the monarch preserves its strength. It becomes lighter in spirit but heavier in purpose. Its wings, though they appear as thin as paper, are surprisingly resilient, capable of catching the rising thermals of warm air to glide for hours without a single flap. It is as if the butterfly has been tuned to a different frequency, one that resonates with the pull of the south and the cooling of the earth. It does not rush. It moves with the steady rhythmic pace of a seasoned traveler who knows exactly how far there is to go. This super generation is the bridge between the years, the living link that ensures the cycle continues. It carries the biological legacy of its great-grandparents back to the very groves they left months earlier. It is a journey of staggering proportions, fueled by a heart no larger than a grain of sand. Every mile it covers is a testament to the incredible resilience of life, a reminder that even the smallest among us can be capable of the most extraordinary feats when guided by the ancient wisdom of instinct. As the journey progresses, the landscape begins to change. The flat prairies give way to the rugged, sun-drenched peaks of the Sierra Madre. The air grows crisp and thin, smelling of pine and damp earth. The butterfly is nearing its destination, a place it has never seen, yet a place that is etched into its very DNA. It is searching for the Oyamo fir forests, those ancient, mist-shrouded groves that cling to the mountainsides of central Mexico. These trees, with their soft, needle-like leaves and dense canopies, provide a sanctuary of perfect stillness, a place where millions of travelers will soon find their winter rest. Think of the sheer scale of this task. A creature that weighs less than a single gram is searching for a few specific acres of forest hidden within a mountain range that stretches for hundreds of miles. It is a needle in a haystack problem on a planetary scale. Yet every year, they find it. They do not just find the right mountain, they often find the exact same trees that their great-great-grandparents clung to during the previous winter. This is not a coincidence. It is a masterpiece of biological navigation, a map written in the very molecules of their being. How does a traveler find a destination it has never seen? The monarch's tiny brain, no larger than a pinhead, is a marvel of integration. It uses what scientists call a time-compensated sun compass. This allows the butterfly to maintain a consistent southerly heading by constantly adjusting for the sun's movement across the sky throughout the day. It knows where the sun should be at 10 in the morning and where it will be at 4 in the afternoon, and it corrects its flight path accordingly. But the sun is not always a reliable guide. When clouds gather or the thick mist of the Mexican highlands rolls in, the butterfly switches to its secondary system, a magnetic compass. Deep within its tissues are specialized sensors that can detect the Earth's magnetic field, acting as a silent, internal guide that points the way even when the world is draped in gray. As they reach the trans-Mexican volcanic belt, the butterflies are guided by more than just direction. They are seeking a very specific atmosphere. The Oyamel fir forests, located at high altitudes between 8,000 and 11,000 feet, create a unique microclimate. The air here is cool enough to keep the butterflies in a state of semi-dormancy, which is essential for preserving their precious fat reserves. If it were too warm, they would burn through their energy too quickly. If it were too cold, they would freeze. The dense, umbrella-like canopy of the fir trees protects them from the mountain rains and the biting wind. It is a delicate balance, a Goldilocks zone of temperature and humidity that exists in these rare high-altitude groves. This is a homecoming to a place they have never seen. There is something deeply peaceful about this, a return to a sanctuary known only through the silent, inherited instructions of their DNA. It is as if the forest itself is a beacon, a soft green frequency of safety that resonates with their very existence. After months of travel and thousands of miles of uncertainty, the pull of the mountains becomes an embrace. They have arrived at the end of the long road. Take a slow, deep breath now, feeling the air fill your lungs and then leave you just as gently. As you settle deeper into your covers, imagine the absolute stillness of those mountain peaks. The air is thin and crisp, smelling of damp earth and the sweet, resinous scent of evergreen needles. The only sound is the softest sigh of the wind through the high branches. Close your eyes and visualize the light filtering through the canopy, casting long golden shadows across the forest floor. You are there, in the quiet heart of the sanctuary, where the long journey finally slows to a beautiful, rhythmic rest. As you stand in the quiet imagination of this forest, a new sound begins to emerge. It is not the sound of a storm or a heavy downpour, but something far more delicate. It is the sound of millions of wings, a soft, rhythmic shiver that mimics the pitter-patter of a gentle spring rain. Each individual wing beat is nearly silent, a mere stir of air, yet when multiplied by the millions, it creates a living, breathing symphony. It is a whisper of movement that fills the air, a rustling that signals the final arrival. They descend from the sky like falling leaves, but instead of drifting to the earth, they find their way to the trunks and branches of the oyamel firs, settling in for the long winter rest. Look closely at the trees in this mountain sanctuary. They are no longer just green and brown. They are draped in layers of orange and black, heavy with the weight of thousands of butterflies clinging to one another. They do not rest in isolation. Instead, they huddle in massive clusters, so thick and dense that the bark of the trees disappears entirely. This is more than just a social gathering. It is a vital, instinctive strategy for survival. By clustering together in these great numbers, the butterflies create a collective warmth that a single individual could never maintain on its own. While a lone monarch would quickly lose its body heat to the thin mountain air, a mass of thousands can actually alter the temperature of their immediate microenvironment. Science has shown us that these clusters can be several degrees warmer than the surrounding air, creating a pocket of life-saving heat. The butterflies on the outer layer of the cluster act as a shield, taking the brunt of the cool mountain breeze, while those nestled deep inside remain sheltered and safe. They often rotate their positions with a slow, almost imperceptible movement, a silent exchange that ensures the health of the entire group. There is a profound sense of peace in this collective presence. It is a reminder that even the most fragile beings find strength in one another. A creature so light it weighs less than a penny becomes part of a heavy orange tapestry that can withstand the mountain winter. They will stay here for months, their heartbeat slowed, their energy preserved, waiting for the precise moment when the angle of the sun tells them it is time to return to the world of flowers and fields. As we leave the quiet orange-drenched groves of Mexico, take a moment to appreciate the stillness of the mountain air. We are moving now, lifting away from the forest floor, rising above the peaks and turning our gaze toward the vast blue horizons of the open ocean. The story of migration is not limited to the small and delicate. It extends to the masters of the sky, those who spend their lives crossing the very boundaries of the earth. We transition now from the soft rustle of butterfly wings to the powerful, steady beat of a bird that has mastered the art of distance unlike any other creature on our planet. Imagine a life where the sun almost never sets. For one small, elegant bird, the concept of a long, dark winter is entirely foreign. This creature lives in a world of perpetual light, chasing the sun across the entire globe to ensure it sees 2 summers every single year. This is the world of the Arctic tern, a bird that weighs no more than a small orange, yet holds the undisputed world record for the longest migration of any animal on Earth. While the monarch butterfly's journey is a feat of successive generations, the Arctic tern performs a miracle of individual endurance, repeating its incredible trek year after year for decades. As the northern summer begins to fade in the high Arctic, and the first hints of autumn chill the air, the Arctic tern prepares for a journey that defies imagination. It leaves its nesting grounds in the far north, quiet, rocky places in Greenland, Iceland, or the northernmost reaches of Canada, and begins a trek toward the opposite end of the planet. Its destination is the pack ice of Antarctica, where the southern summer is just beginning to bloom in a landscape of white and blue. To reach this icy southern paradise, the tern must traverse the entire length of the vast oceans. It is a journey of staggering proportions. While a straight line between the poles is roughly 12,000 miles, the Arctic tern does not fly in a simple, direct path. Instead, it follows the curves of the continents and the invisible highways of the wind. This results in an annual round trip of about 44,000 miles. Every year, this one bird travels nearly twice the circumference of the Earth, all to remain in the gentle glow of the sun. When you consider the lifespan of these resilient travelers, the numbers become even more awe-inspiring. An Arctic tern is not a fleeting visitor to our world. It can live for 30 years or more. In that lifetime of constant, rhythmic movement, a single bird will fly a total distance of roughly 1.5 million miles. To put that in perspective, imagine looking up at the night sky. In its lifetime, that small white bird will fly the equivalent of 3 round trips from the Earth to the Moon and back again. It is a testament to the sheer quiet power of biological endurance, a life lived almost entirely on the wing, suspended between the sea and the sky. As they move across the vast expanse of the Atlantic, their flight path takes on a curious and deliberate shape. If you were to track them from high above, you would see that they do not take the shortest route. They do not fight the world to reach their goal. Instead, they trace a massive, winding zigzag across the open water. This isn't because they are lost or disoriented in the trackless blue. Rather, it is a master class in aerial efficiency, a way of moving that works with the planet rather than against it. You might wonder, as you drift closer to a restful state, why a bird facing such a monumental distance wouldn't simply choose the shortest path. In our human world, we are often taught that a straight line is the most efficient way to get from one point to another. But for the Arctic tern, the shortest distance is rarely the easiest. To fly directly against the wind is to fight the very medium that supports you. And in the vastness of the open ocean, fighting the wind is a battle that costs too much energy to win. Instead, these birds have learned to dance with the atmosphere, turning the global wind systems into a series of moving walkways. If you were to look at a map of their journey, you would see a massive, sweeping S shape that mirrors the great Atlantic gyre. They are following the prevailing winds, the great invisible rivers of air that circulate around our planet in predictable ancient patterns. In the North Atlantic, they hitch a ride on the westerlies, which push them toward the east. As they descend toward the equator, they find the trade winds, which carry them back toward the west. By aligning their flight with these currents, they can spend long stretches of their journey gliding rather than flapping. Imagine the quiet grace of a bird suspended in the air, its wings held steady and arched, being carried thousands of miles by the breath of the earth itself. This reliance on the wind is a master class in energy conservation. While they are capable of powerful rhythmic flapping, every beat of their wings burns precious fuel. By choosing to glide, the tern significantly reduces its metabolic rate, allowing its heart to beat more slowly and its muscles to remain supple. They also make use of thermals, rising columns of warm air and updrafts created by the waves below, using the very texture of the atmosphere to stay aloft with minimal effort. This efficiency is the silent secret behind the longest journey on Earth. It is not just about having the strength to fly, it is about having the wisdom to cooperate with the planet. The Arctic tern survives because it understands that the atmosphere is not an obstacle to be overcome, but a partner in its travel. It treats the wind not as a force to be fought, but as a guide to be followed. This patient, winding approach allows the tern to arrive at the Antarctic pack ice not exhausted and depleted, but ready to thrive in the southern summer. Yet, as remarkable as this winding journey is, there is another traveler in the avian world whose strategy represents the opposite extreme of migration. While the tern takes its time, weaving through the winds and stopping to dip its beak into the sea for a meal, this other bird chooses a path of startling, unwavering intensity. It does not zigzag, and it does not stop to rest. It prepares for a feat of endurance that seems to defy the very laws of biology, embarking on a flight that requires a level of physical commitment that is almost impossible to comprehend. This is the story of the bar-tailed godwit, a bird that prepares for its journey by fundamentally altering its own body, setting the stage for one of the most grueling, non-stop performances in the natural world. Imagine, if you will, a journey that does not allow for a single moment of rest. For most of us, the idea of a long trip involves stops for food, a place to sleep, and moments to stretch and breathe. But for the bar-tailed godwit, the journey from the northern hemisphere to the southern is a feat of pure, unbroken momentum. Once this bird leaves the muddy shores of Alaska, it will not touch the ground, nor will it close both eyes in sleep. For 8 days and 8 nights, it is a marathon of the skies that lasts nearly 200 hours of continuous, rhythmic flapping. The godwit's path takes it directly across the vast shimmering expanse of the Pacific Ocean. While other birds might hug the coastlines, seeking the safety of land or the bounty of nearshore waters, the godwit strikes out into the deep blue. It is heading for New Zealand, a distance of over 7,000 miles. To put that in perspective, it is like flying non-stop from London to the tip of South Africa, and then continuing on for another 1,000 miles. There are no islands for it to rest upon, no way stations in the clouds. Because the godwit is a shorebird and not a seabird, it cannot land on the water to rest. Its feathers are not designed to shed the salt spray, and its feet are not webbed for swimming. If it were to stop, the journey would end, so it flies. Through the golden light of day and the velvet silence of the night, the godwit maintains a steady, unwavering pace. Scientists believe these birds may use a form of unihemispheric sleep, allowing one half of the brain to rest while the other half stays alert, keeping the wings beating and the navigation true. It is a state of being, both present and dreaming, a waking meditation held aloft by the wind. They fly through storms and over calm seas, their tiny hearts beating a constant rhythm that fuels every stroke of their wings. This is the ultimate test of biological endurance found anywhere in the natural world. To fly 7,000 miles without a single calorie of food or a drop of fresh water is to push the very limits of what a living creature can achieve. The godwit becomes a vessel of pure intent, a living bridge connecting two opposite ends of the earth. By the time it sees the green coastlines of New Zealand appearing on the horizon, it will have lost nearly half of its body weight. But a journey of such staggering intensity cannot begin without an equally incredible period of preparation. A bird cannot simply decide to fly across an ocean on a whim. Long before the first godwit lifts its wings from the Alaskan tundra, a quiet, internal revolution begins to take place within its body. It must prepare for this 8-day fast by fundamentally re-engineering its own anatomy, turning itself into a specialized machine built for one thing and one thing only: the long, silent flight home. This transformation is a masterclass in biological efficiency, where every organ and every ounce of tissue is reconsidered for the sake of the journey ahead. Imagine the bar-tailed godwit standing on the edge of the Alaskan tundra, the cool wind ruffling its feathers as the days begin to shorten. In the weeks before its departure, it doesn't just prepare, it transforms. It enters a state called hyperphagia, a word that simply means overeating. But in the natural world, it is a focused, biological mission. The bird begins to consume food with a quiet, relentless intensity, often doubling its body weight in a matter of days. This isn't the kind of weight that slows a creature down. It is the very essence of life, stored as high-energy fat that will act as the bird's only source of power for thousands of miles. It is a golden, life-sustaining fuel packed tightly beneath the skin and around the organs, ready to be converted into the steady motion of wings. As the bird grows heavier, something truly remarkable happens inside its body. To compensate for the added weight of the fat and to lighten the load for the long journey ahead, the bird's internal organs, those not strictly necessary for the act of flying, begin to shrink. The gizzard, the stomach, and the intestines, which have worked so hard to process all that food, slowly wither away in a process of controlled atrophy. Even the liver and kidneys may decrease in size. It is as if the bird is shedding its old self, discarding the machinery of the earth to become a creature of the air. In their place, the heart and the flight muscles grow larger and stronger, preparing for the Herculean task of beating for 8 days without a single moment of rest. By the time the godwit takes to the sky, it has become a specialized flying machine, a masterpiece of biological efficiency where every gram of weight has a specific purpose. It is a vessel of pure intent designed to burn its own body for fuel until the journey is complete. When it finally arrives in New Zealand, it will be lean and exhausted, its organs ready to regrow and its body ready to recover. But the mission will have been a success. This incredible ability to reshape the self for the sake of the journey is one of nature's most profound secrets, a testament to the lengths life will go to find its way home. And while it is easy to marvel at the endurance of a bird the size of a pigeon, this same indomitable spirit can be found in the smallest corners of the garden. Size, it seems, has very little to do with the scale of the ambition or the strength of the instinct. Even a creature weighing less than a single teaspoon of sugar can harbor a map of the world inside its tiny mind, and the courage to cross an entire sea on wings that move faster than the human eye can see. As we turn our attention from the vast, salt-sprayed horizons of the Pacific, we find a traveler just as mighty, though its journey begins in the quiet shade of a blooming flower tucked away in the backyard gardens of North America. Here, the ruby-throated hummingbird is preparing for a feat that defies its delicate appearance. Imagine a creature so small it could rest comfortably in the palm of your hand, its weight no more than that of a single copper penny or a small teaspoon of sugar. This is the ruby-throated hummingbird, a shimmering jewel of the garden that weighs a mere 3 grams. It seems almost too delicate for the world, with its iridescent emerald feathers and a heart that beats with a frantic, hidden energy. Yet, this tiny bird is one of the most courageous travelers on our planet. Every year, as the flowers begin to fade and the air turns crisp, the hummingbird prepares for a journey that defies its fragile appearance. It leaves behind the safety of the trees and the familiarity of the garden to face a challenge that would daunt much larger animals, the crossing of the Gulf of Mexico. For the ruby-throated hummingbird, this is a solo mission. There are no flocks to follow, no parents to guide the way for the young. Driven by an ancient internal map, they fly toward the coast and look out over 500 miles of open salt-sprayed water. For a bird that cannot swim and cannot soar on the wind like an eagle, the Gulf is a vast and dangerous expanse. Once they leave the shore, there is no place to land, no branch to perch upon, and no nectar-filled blossom to offer a moment of sweetness. It is a test of pure, unwavering endurance. As you settle deeper into your rest, imagine the sound of those tiny wings. While other birds flap and glide, the hummingbird must work for every inch of progress. Their wings move in a unique figure-8 pattern, beating 50, 60, and sometimes 80 times every single second. It is a pace so fast that to our eyes, the wings become nothing more than a soft, translucent blur. To sustain this incredible movement, the hummingbird's metabolism is among the highest in the animal kingdom. Its tiny heart, no larger than a pea, beats over 1,200 times per minute during flight. It is a masterpiece of biological engineering, a high-performance engine contained within a body that seems made of light and air. The flight across the Gulf can take 20 hours or more of continuous, non-stop effort. Through the heat of the day and the quiet of the night, the hummingbird remains in motion, a solitary speck of life suspended between the sky and the sea. There is no room for error and no time for sleep. It is a reminder that in the natural world, size is never a measure of strength or spirit. The same instinct that guides the great whales and the wandering albatross lives just as powerfully within this 3-gram traveler. It is a titan of the air, proving that the scale of a journey is defined not by the distance traveled, but by the heart of the one who makes it. But to survive such an exhausting feat, the hummingbird must solve a difficult problem. Where does it find the energy to keep those wings moving for 20 hours straight? For a bird that usually needs to eat every few minutes just to stay alive, a day-long flight over water should be impossible. The secret lies in a profound transformation that takes place just before they depart. They begin to see the world not as a playground of flowers, but as a series of refueling stations. They eat until they have nearly doubled their body weight, packing away energy in the most efficient way possible. This brings us back to the concept of the biological battery. For the hummingbird, as for the long-distance migrants we have discussed, fat is the ultimate source of power. It is a clean, dense, and highly portable fuel that allows them to carry their own life support system across the waves. As we look closer at how this fuel works, we begin to see that it is much more than just a way to store calories. It is a specialized substance that provides everything a traveler needs to survive in the most demanding environments on Earth. In the quiet of the flight, this golden fuel is slowly converted into the energy of motion, keeping the wings beating and the heart steady until the green shores of the south finally appear on the horizon. In the quiet architecture of a bird's body, there is perhaps no fuel cleaner or more efficient than the fat stored just beneath the skin. To our human ears, the word fat often carries a different weight, but for a traveler crossing an ocean, it is the purest form of life. It is nature's most concentrated energy source, a biological battery designed to last for thousands of miles without a single recharge. When we look at a bird preparing for its journey, we are seeing a master class in efficiency. If a bird were to store its energy as carbohydrates, like the sugars or starches we often rely on, it would simply be too heavy to fly. Carbohydrates are bulky. They hold a great deal of water weight and provide only a modest amount of power per gram. But fat is different. It is light, dense, and incredibly potent. In the economy of the sky, fat provides more than twice the energy of protein or carbohydrates. It allows a bird to pack the maximum amount of range into the smallest possible physical space. This efficiency is what enables a tiny warbler to double its weight in a few short weeks and then spend that entire reserve in one magnificent non-stop push across the horizon. But there is a second, even more remarkable secret hidden within this golden fuel. As the bird's body breaks down the fat to power its wings, a quiet chemical reaction occurs deep within its cells. This process doesn't just release the energy needed for movement, it also releases water. Scientists call this metabolic water, and for a migratory bird, it is a miracle of survival. For every gram of fat a bird burns, it produces nearly an equal amount of fresh water internally. Imagine, for a moment, the experience of a bird flying high above the Sahara Desert or the salt spray of the Atlantic. There are no streams to drink from, no dew on the leaves, and the air is dry and taxing. Yet, through the very act of flying, the bird is creating its own internal oasis. It is drinking from its own reserves, staying hydrated by the very process that keeps it in the air. The fuel that powers the muscles also quenches the thirst. It is a closed, perfect system, a testament to the elegance of evolution. The bird becomes a self-sustaining vessel, carrying everything it needs to survive within its own small, warm frame. As the hours pass and the fat reserves are slowly depleted, the bird becomes lighter, making it even easier to stay aloft. The journey is a constant balancing act of weight and power, a slow unfolding of energy that has been gathered with such care. But even with a full tank of fuel and a built-in water supply, the traveler still faces the great challenge of the path itself. How does it recognize the invisible boundaries of its world? How does it know when it is passing over a familiar valley or nearing a hidden coast? While we have explored the maps of the stars and the pull of the magnetic poles, there are other more intimate ways the earth speaks to the traveler. Beyond the reach of sight and the tug of the compass, there is a world of invisible signals drifting on the wind. As the bird moves through the cool night air, it isn't just seeing the landscape. It is beginning to sense the very breath of the earth. It is moving into a realm where the memory of the land is carried not just in shapes and colors, but in the subtle, drifting sense of the world below. Imagine the wind as it brushes gently against your face. For us, it is a cooling sensation, perhaps carrying the faint, fleeting hint of rain or wood smoke. But for a traveler in the sky, the air is thick with a different kind of information. It is an invisible map, written in the subtle, drifting language of scent. For a long time, it was a common belief that birds had a poor sense of smell, that their world was defined almost entirely by what they could see or feel. We now know, however, that many migratory species possess an extraordinary olfactory map, a way of navigating by the very scent of the earth itself. As a bird glides over a forest in the quiet of the night, it might sense the dampness of the earth, the sharp fragrance of pine needles, or the soft sweetness of blooming wildflowers. These are not just pleasant aromas, they are landmarks. Just as we might recognize a specific building or a familiar turn in the road, the bird recognizes the unique scent profile of a valley, a riverbed, or a coastal marsh. It is a sensory layer that helps them confirm their position, a silent reassurance that they are exactly where they are meant to be. This sense is perhaps most incredible in the birds that spend their lives over the open ocean, where the horizon looks identical in every direction. Consider the petrel or the albatross wandering across thousands of miles of salt water. To our eyes, the sea is a blue desert, a vast and unchanging expanse. But to the petrel, the ocean is a complex landscape of scentscapes. They are searching for a very specific chemical signal called dimethyl sulfide. This substance is released into the air when tiny floating plants called phytoplankton are grazed upon by small creatures like krill. To a seabird, this smell is the equivalent of a lighthouse. It signals a rich feeding ground, a place where life is teeming beneath the waves. By following these plumes of scent as they drift on the sea breeze, they can navigate across the featureless ocean, moving from one invisible patch of food to the next with unerring precision. The ocean, to them, is not just a body of water. It is a map of fragrances, a shifting, drifting guide that leads them through the deep blue. This ability to perceive the world through smell adds yet another dimension to the migratory journey. The traveler is not just moving through physical space. They are moving through a sensory experience so rich and layered that it is difficult for us to even imagine. They are guided by the sun, the stars, the magnetic pull of the poles, and the very breath of the planet. But as the bird continues its flight, passing over the crashing waves and the silent peaks of distant mountains, it begins to pick up on another signal, one that does not arrive through the nose or the eyes. It is a vibration, a deep resonant pulse that hums through the very air itself. It is the sound of the world's most powerful movements, a low-frequency whisper that travels for thousands of miles, carrying news of the landscape long before it ever comes into view. This is the realm of infrasound, a secret language of the earth that only a few can hear. Imagine for a moment that you could close your eyes and hear the shape of a continent. To a bird suspended in the high, cold air of the night, the world is not just a visual map, but an orchestral one. They can hear the mountains from 1,000 miles away. This is the realm of infrasound. Sounds so low in frequency that they fall far below the range of human hearing. While we perceive the world in a relatively narrow band of sound, many migratory birds are tuned into a deep, resonant bass that thrums through the atmosphere. These long, slow sound waves have a remarkable property. They do not dissipate easily, unlike the high-pitched chirp of a cricket or the rustle of leaves, which fade within a few hundred yards. Infrasound can travel across entire oceans and over vast mountain ranges without losing its strength. It is a constant, low-frequency pulse that wraps around the curve of the earth. When the wind rushes over the jagged peaks of the Himalayas or the Andes, it creates a specific acoustic signature, a low-frequency moan that radiates outward for thousands of miles. To a bird, this isn't just noise, it is a beacon. They can hear the distant rhythmic pounding of the surf against a rocky coastline long before the ocean ever appears on the horizon. They can hear the deep, heavy rumble of a thunderstorm moving across a distant prairie, or the subtle, tectonic vibrations of a volcanic range. In this way, they are listening to the very geography of the planet. The Earth has a voice, a slow and ancient song composed of the movements of air and water against stone. As they fly through the velvet silence of the high atmosphere, they are guided by this acoustic landscape, using the deep pulses of the earth to stay on course. It is as if the planet itself is whispering directions, providing a steady, low-frequency hum that anchors them to the physical world, even when the stars are hidden by thick clouds or the landscape below is shrouded in fog. They are never truly lost because the earth is always speaking to them, singing its shape into the air. This auditory map provides a sense of scale and distance that we can scarcely imagine, allowing a tiny creature to feel the presence of a mountain range half a continent away. But this incredible sensitivity to the world's signals, the magnetism, the sense, and the deep sounds of the earth raises a profound and beautiful question. How does a young bird embarking on its very first journey know which of these signals to follow? Is this knowledge etched into their very DNA, a set of instructions written in the language of cells and neurons before they even break from the shell? Or is the path something that must be learned, a tradition passed from parent to child in the vast, open classroom of the sky? The balance between what is inherited and what is taught, between nature and nurture, is one of the most enduring mysteries of the natural world. To understand how the journey begins, we must look at how the next generation takes its place in the sky. I consider the quiet mystery of a young cuckoo bird, a creature no heavier than a few coins, perched on a branch as the first autumn chill touches the air. This tiny traveler has never seen the world beyond its birth grove. It has no map, no guide, and no elders to follow. Its parents may have already departed, leaving it to find its own way across thousands of miles of unfamiliar terrain. And yet, when the moment is right, it takes to the night sky with a strange and unwavering confidence. This is the great debate of the natural world. the balance between nature and nurture, between the wisdom held in the cells and the lessons learned from the flock. For many of our smaller feathered friends, like the warblers and the thrushes, migration is a solo performance, a destiny etched into their very DNA. Scientists have discovered that these birds possess what we might call a genetic script, a set of internal instructions that tells them not only when to leave, but in which direction to fly and for how many hours. In famous studies of birds called blackcaps, researchers found that even if a bird is raised in total isolation, it will still turn its body toward the exact compass heading its ancestors took for thousands of years. If you crossbreed a bird that migrates southwest with one that migrates southeast, their offspring will instinctively try to fly due south, splitting the difference between their parents' legacies. For these small travelers, the map is not something they learn, it is something they are. It is a biological inheritance, as much a part of them as the color of their feathers or the shape of their beak. But as we look to the larger travelers of the sky, the elegant cranes, the sturdy geese, and the majestic swans, the story shifts into something more social and tender. These birds are not born with a finished map, they are born with the capacity to learn one. Their journey is a shared tradition, a living library of geography passed down from one generation to the next. A young crane embarking on its first flight follows closely behind its parents, watching how they navigate the mountain passes and where they stop to rest in the safety of the wetlands. Without this guidance, a young crane might become lost, unable to find the ancestral wintering grounds that its family has visited for centuries. There is a profound beauty in this sky classroom. It means that for these species, migration is a cultural act. It is a social bond that stretches back through time, a chain of knowledge that must remain unbroken to survive. We have seen the depth of this bond in conservation efforts, where humans, flying small, light aircraft, have had to act as surrogate parents, literally teaching young, captive-bred birds the flight paths of their ancestors to save a species from extinction. In this way, the sky is filled with two different kinds of wisdom. There is the silent, solitary instinct of the songbird carrying the ancient code of its kind in every heartbeat. And there is the collective memory of the flock, where the old teach the young the secrets of the wind and the landmarks of the earth. Whether it is a genetic legacy or a social tradition, migration represents a triumph of continuity, a promise kept between the past and the future. This need to stay together, to share the burden of the journey and the wisdom of the path, brings these travelers into close rhythmic proximity. As they gather in the high air, they begin to arrange themselves into familiar, elegant patterns, using the very air around them to turn a group of individuals into a single, soaring entity. This coordination begins with a shape that has fascinated observers for millennia: the iconic V formation, a masterpiece of both geometry and cooperation. As you imagine those birds etched against the twilight sky, consider the quiet intelligence of that shape. It is a sight we often take for granted, the long, elegant lines of a V formation trailing across the clouds. But it is far more than just a visual harmony. It is a sophisticated piece of biological engineering, a way for the flock to move through the air, as if they were a single living organism. When a large bird, like a goose or an ibis, pushes its wings downward through the air, it creates a series of invisible ripples in its wake. Just beyond the tips of its wings, the air is forced upward in a phenomenon scientists call upwash. This rising air is a gift to the bird positioned just behind and to the side of the leader. By placing its own wing in this sweet spot of upward moving air, the following bird catches a free ride, receiving a gentle lift that reduces the amount of energy it needs to stay aloft. It is as if the air itself is lending a helping hand, pushing the traveler forward. This isn't just a theory of physics. It is a measurable reality of the body. In remarkable studies where scientists placed heart rate monitors on migratory birds like great white pelicans, they discovered something extraordinary. The birds flying in the wake of the V formation had significantly lower heart rates than those flying alone or leading the flock. They could glide for longer periods, their hearts beating with a slow, steady rhythm, even as they covered vast distances. For a bird on a journey that spans continents, this energy saving is the difference between exhaustion and success. It allows them to travel further and faster than any one of them could ever manage on their own. In this formation, the birds are constantly adjusting their positions with incredible sensitivity. They aren't just following a shape, they are feeling the air with their entire bodies, sensing the subtle shifts in the vortices created by the bird in front of them. They time their wing beats to match the rhythm of the air currents, creating a synchronized dance that looks effortless from the ground but requires a deep instinctive focus. This is the true power of cooperation in the natural world. It is the realization that by working together, the impossible becomes possible. The vast empty stretches of the ocean or the towering peaks of the mountains become less daunting when the burden of the wind is shared. It is a beautiful, silent agreement written in the sky. I will lift you up, and you will lift the one behind you. Yet, as efficient as this formation is, it presents a unique challenge for the individual. At the very tip of the V, the leader of the flock is the only one who does not receive the benefit of upwash. They are the one breaking the resistance of the air, working the hardest to create the path for everyone else. In a world governed by the strict laws of survival, you might wonder why any bird would choose to take on this exhausting role. But the answer lies in a deep sense of mutual support, a rotation of responsibility that ensures the journey continues for the whole family. As the miles pass and the air grows thin, the role of the one at the front begins to shift. In the vast open sky, leadership is not a position of power, but a shared responsibility. There is no permanent boss in a flock of migrating geese or ibises. Instead, the role of the leader is a rotating one, a fluid exchange of effort that ensures no single bird is pushed to the point of exhaustion. When the bird at the very tip of the V begins to feel the weight of the wind, it doesn't struggle in silence. It simply drifts back, falling away from the apex and moving toward the rear of the formation. As it slides into the wake of its companions, it finally feels the gentle lift of the upwash, allowing its heart rate to slow and its wings to find a more relaxed, rhythmic beat. Almost instantly, another bird from just behind steps up to take its place at the front, ready to break the resistance of the air for a while. This behavior is a remarkable example of what biologists call reciprocal altruism. It is a deep-seated social contract that says, I will lead now so that you may rest, and later you will do the same for me. In fascinating studies of the northern bald ibis, researchers discovered that these birds are meticulous about their turns. They spend almost exactly the same amount of time leading as they do following. If one bird leads for 10 minutes, it will eventually receive 10 minutes of rest in the draft of another. It is a perfectly balanced system of fairness, a biological check and balance that prevents any one individual from being taken advantage of or becoming too weak to continue. This isn't just a random shift. It is a sophisticated coordination that allows the group to travel much further than any individual could ever manage alone. By sharing the hardest part of the journey, they turn a grueling trek into a manageable series of shifts. It is a testament to the power of cooperation in the face of the elements, a quiet, steady teamwork that happens miles above the earth, far from any witness. They are driven by a deep ancestral understanding that their survival depends on the health of the entire flock. When one succeeds, they all move closer to their destination. As they rotate and glide, the flock moves as if it were a single living entity, a silver ribbon draped across the velvet sky. Their focus is split, half on the rhythmic pulse of the air and the position of their neighbors, and half on the world unfolding far beneath them. While their internal compasses and the stars provide the broad direction, they are also keen observers of the physical world. They look for the familiar shapes of the earth to confirm they are on the right path. Just as we might look for a familiar tree or a specific landmark to find our way home, these travelers use the planet's own features as a visual map. They begin to scan the horizon for the silver threads of rivers winding through the valleys and the dark, jagged lines of mountain ranges that serve as ancient signposts, guiding them through the quiet air toward the land they remember. From this height, the silver threads of rivers are perhaps the most comforting sight of all. These winding ribbons of water, catching the soft light of the day, act as natural highways that carve a clear path through the complexity of the landscape. For a migrating bird, a river is more than just a source of hydration. It is a definitive, unmistakable line that points the way through deep valleys and across vast rolling plains. It is a visual anchor in a world of shifting clouds and endless horizons, a guide that remains steady, even when the internal compass feels the subtle pull of magnetic fluctuations. This reliance on the physical features of the earth is a hallmark of diurnal migrants, those birds that choose to travel during the light of day. While they possess incredible internal senses, they also lean heavily on what biologists call leading lines. These are prominent geographical features that naturally funnel a traveler in a specific direction. A long mountain ridge, for example, provides a steady, dark spine to follow, while a coastline offers a clear, high contrast boundary where the deep rhythmic pulse of the ocean meets the solid stillness of the land. By following these lines, birds can maintain a remarkably straight course, using the planet's own architecture to simplify the mental work of navigation. In our modern world, this visual map has expanded to include the marks left by human hands. It is a testament to their adaptability that many birds now recognize and use man-made landmarks to find their way. They have been observed following the straight gray ribbons of interstate highways, or the distinct glowing grids of cities that appear like clusters of fallen stars in the twilight. To a hawk or a crane, these are simply new features on an ancient map, reliable shapes and patterns that confirm they are on the right track. The Earth's surface becomes a familiar sequence of colors and textures, a patchwork quilt of forests, fields, and waters that they have committed to memory over years of travel. There is a quiet, steady confidence in this way of moving. Every bend in a river, every jagged peak of a mountain range, and every familiar curve of a lakeshore acts as a checkpoint. For the experienced traveler, the world is not a vast, intimidating wilderness, but a series of known places, each one leading gracefully into the next. It is a visual language they speak fluently, a way of reading the story of the land as it unfolds beneath their wings. They are not just flying over the earth, they are engaging with it, recognizing the landmarks that their ancestors followed for millennia. But even with such a clear map spread out below, the journey is never without its challenges. The air through which they move is a restless, invisible ocean, and it is rarely ever still. While the landmarks provide a steady guide, the birds must constantly contend with the shifting moods of the atmosphere. A crosswind, gentle at first, but growing in strength, can begin to nudge a traveler off its intended heading, pushing it away from the river or the coastline it seeks to follow. This is the subtle, persistent challenge of drift, the invisible force that threatens to slide the world sideways beneath them, requiring the bird to be more than just a passenger of the wind, but an active, attentive pilot of its own destiny. Imagine for a moment that you are high above the earth, suspended in a cool, dark stream of air. You have your landmarks, the silver thread of a river, the dark shadow of a forest. But the wind is not always your friend. What happens when a powerful gust or a steady, persistent crosswind begins to push you away from your path? In the vast open sky, there are no walls to hold you in place, and the wind can be a deceptive force, quietly nudging a traveler miles away from its intended destination. This is the subtle challenge of drift. If a bird simply kept its beak pointed toward its goal, while a side wind blew, it would eventually find itself tracing a long, inefficient arc through the ski costs, wasting precious energy and perhaps missing its vital stopover points entirely. But nature has provided these travelers with a remarkable ability to sense this invisible movement and correct it in real time. This process, known as navigation correction, is one of the most impressive feats of the avian mind. To understand how they do it, imagine looking down from a great height at the landscape passing below. Scientists believe birds use something called optic flow to detect drift. As they fly, they watch the way the ground moves beneath them. If they are flying perfectly straight in still air, the landmarks below appear to move directly backward. However, if a crosswind starts to push them to the left, the landmarks will appear to move diagonally across their field of vision. Even in the dim light of a moonlit night, the bird's sensitive eyes can pick up this diagonal shift, signaling to the brain that they are no longer on a true course. Once the drift is detected, the bird becomes an active pilot. It doesn't just struggle against the wind, compensates with precision. Much like a sailor angling a boat against a current, the bird will crab into the wind, pointing its body at a specific angle so that the wind push and its own forward motion cancel each other out. The result is a steady, straight line over the earth, even as the wind tries to blow them astray. It is a sophisticated calculation of physics performed instinctively and silently, moment by moment. Studies have shown that this skill often improves with age and experience. While young birds on their first journey might be more easily swept off course, older, more seasoned travelers have a better feel for the wind. They are more likely to correct their heading and maintain a true path, demonstrating that migration is not just a matter of instinct, but a craft that is honed over years of flight. They are not merely leaves blowing in the gale, they are masters of the air, navigating the invisible currents with a quiet, determined grace. Let us take a slow, deep breath together now, feeling the stillness of the room around you. Imagine the steady rhythmic beat of wings in the cool night air. There is a profound sense of peace in that movement, a singular focus that carries the traveler forward through the dark. Even when the winds shift and the path becomes difficult, the bird remains calm, adjusting its course with a flicker of a wing, always moving toward the place it needs to be. The night is vast and the journey is long, but the rhythm of the wings is constant, a heartbeat in the sky that never falters. As we watch these travelers in our mind's eye, it is impossible not to feel a sense of deep respect for their quiet resilience. To fly thousands of miles is not merely a feat of navigation. It is a profound testament to the strength of the living spirit. These creatures do not always have the luxury of waiting for the perfect calm day. They often fly through shifting weather, through sudden mists that obscure the stars, or through buffeting winds that test the very limits of their tiny frames. Yet they do not give up. There is a steady, patient determination in every wing beat, a refusal to be deterred by the vastness of the world or the obstacles in their path. Consider for a moment the sheer scale of the barriers some of these migrants must overcome. While many birds follow the coastlines or low-lying valleys, others face the most formidable structures on our planet, the great mountain ranges. Perhaps the most breathtaking example of this endurance belongs to the bar-headed goose. Every year, these birds migrate over the Himalayas, the highest mountain range on Earth. To do so, they must reach altitudes of 20,000 feet or even higher, soaring directly over the jagged, snow-capped peaks of Mount Everest and its neighbors. At such heights, the air is incredibly thin, and the temperature is far below freezing. For most land-bound creatures, the lack of oxygen would be life-threatening, but the bar-headed goose has evolved a specialized physiology for this very purpose. Their lungs are exceptionally efficient, and their blood contains a unique type of hemoglobin that binds more readily to oxygen, allowing them to sustain the intense physical effort of flapping their wings in the rarefied air. They move through a world of silent ice and thin blue sky, a place where few other living things can survive, guided by an ancient internal map that tells them the way is clear. There is a beautiful, quiet power in the realization that life finds a way to cross even the most daunting barriers. Whether it is a tiny warbler crossing the vast salt-scented expanse of the ocean, or a goose cresting the roof of the world, these journeys speak of a harmony between the creature and the planet. They are not fighting the earth. They are moving with its rhythms, using its winds and its magnetic pulse to find their way. The obstacles they face are not walls, but simply part of the landscape of their lives, challenges to be met with the same steady, rhythmic focus that carries them through the night. Take a slow, comforting breath and imagine the silence of those high altitudes. The air is still and cold, the stars feel close enough to touch, and the only sound is the rhythmic whistle of air through feathers. The hardest parts of the journey are now being left behind. The great oceans have been crossed, the highest peaks have been scaled, and the storms have been weathered. A new sensation is beginning to settle over the traveler, a feeling of recognition, a softening of the internal tension. The frantic energy of the move is slowly being replaced by the gentle pull of arrival. The destination is no longer a distant coordinate. It is becoming a physical reality, a scent on the wind, a familiar shape on the horizon. We are moving toward the homecoming, toward the place where the long journey finally finds its rest. Imagine that moment of recognition, that soft shift in the air, when the destination finally appears on the horizon. For a migratory traveler, this is the most profound part of the journey. After thousands of miles of open ocean, shifting winds, and vast, unfamiliar landscapes, the world suddenly begins to look like home. The internal compass, which has been pulling so steadily for so long, begins to quiet. The frantic, driving energy of the flight softens into a graceful descent. It is a moment of deep biological relief, a returning to the familiar after a season of great wandering. What is truly remarkable is the precision of this arrival. A songbird that spent its winter in the tropical rainforests of South America does not simply return to the same northern forest or the same county. Often it returns to the exact same thicket, the same specific branch, or the same nesting box it used the year before. This incredible ability to return to a specific site is known to scientists as philopatry, a word derived from the Greek for home-loving. It is the tendency of an organism to stay in or habitually return to a particular area. And in the world of migration, it is one of nature's most precise miracles. Think of the journey of a salmon, returning from years in the vast, salt-scented Pacific Ocean. It doesn't just find the coast. It finds the mouth of the specific river where it was born. From there, it follows the scent of the water, navigating through a labyrinth of tributaries until it reaches the very gravel bed where its own life began. This is philopatry at its most elemental, a bond between a creature and a specific coordinate on the earth that is so strong it guides every beat of its heart and every movement of its body. For the birds, this homecoming is an intricate dance of memory and sensory data. As they get closer to their destination, the broad-scale maps, the magnetic fields, and the stars begin to hand over the navigation to more local cues. They recognize the curve of a certain coastline, the way a river bends around a hill, and even the specific scent of the local vegetation. The internal map they have followed across the globe finally matches the physical world beneath their wings. The long, lonely hours of the night flight are over. The journey ends not just in a place, but in a familiar embrace. There is a profound sense of peace in this arrival. The bird settles its feathers, the butterfly folds its wings, and the whale enters the quiet, protected waters of its calving grounds. All the diverse tools we have explored, the quantum sensors in the eye, the tiny compasses in the beak, the memory of the stars and the rhythm of the sun, have worked in perfect harmony to bring the traveler back to where it belongs. These internal maps are more than just navigation tools. They are the threads that weave the lives of these creatures into the very fabric of the planet. They remind us that no matter how far a living soul may wander, there is always a path that leads back home, guided by the silent, steady pulse of the earth itself. As the traveler finally rests, the world feels whole again, the cycle of the seasons completed by this one small, successful return. Even as you lie here, in the deep stillness of your room, it is worth remembering that the world outside is never truly still. While you drift toward the edges of sleep, the planet is breathing in a state of constant, quiet motion. At this very moment, high above the clouds, where the air is thin and chilled by the night, thousands of songbirds are beating their tiny wings against the darkness, guided by the ancient maps written in their very cells. In the vast, lightless canyons of the mid-Atlantic, silver eels are threading their way through the currents, following the pull of the Earth's magnetic core. On the plains of the Serengeti, the rhythmic thrum of hooves continues under the glow of a waning moon, a soft percussion that has echoed across the grass for millennia. There is never a single second where the earth is not being traversed by millions of these silent travelers. This is not a series of isolated events, but a single, living, breathing system. Migration is one of the oldest stories on our planet, a biological heritage that predates our own history by millions of years. It is a grand, invisible web of life that connects the frozen, crystalline tundra of the north to the sun-drenched, golden savannas of the south. Every wing beat, every flick of a fin, and every steady footfall serves as a vital stitch in the fabric of the global ecosystem. When a tiny warbler arrives in a quiet garden after traveling thousands of miles from the tropics, it brings with it the energy of another hemisphere. When a great whale migrates through the deep blue, it moves nutrients across the vast, liquid deserts of the ocean, feeding life that it will never even see. These journeys ensure that the earth remains a whole shared space where no corner is left isolated or stagnant. There is a profound, deep comfort in the realization that this cycle continues, steady and predictable, regardless of the noise or chaos of our daily lives. It is a pulse as reliable as the rising sun or the pulling of the tides. We are part of a world that knows exactly where it is going. The same mysterious, beautiful forces that guide a monarch butterfly across a continent are the same forces that keep the stars in their places and the seasons in their turn. To understand the internal compass of these creatures is to realize that we are never truly lost. We are simply part of a magnificent moving whole. You can let go of the need to navigate your own path for a while. You can release the weight of the day, knowing that the earth is carrying you, just as it carries the Arctic tern on its journey from pole to pole. As you prepare for the final surrender into sleep, imagine the quiet, tireless strength of those millions of wings beating in unison across the globe. Let your own breath slow down, finding a steady, easy rhythm that matches the endurance of a long-distance flyer. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the softness of your bed, as grounded and secure as a bird settled into its nest after a journey of 10,000 miles. The maps have been followed, the stars have been read, and the destination has been reached. Now, it is time for the traveler to rest. Thank you for spending this quiet time with me, exploring the wonders of the internal compass and the hidden maps of the natural world. May your dreams be filled with the soft glow of starlight and the gentle, cooling hum of the wind. The world is in good hands, guided by the silent pulse of the earth. Sleep deeply now. Rest well. Good night.